Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I'm Nika and I make book related videos. And today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of January 2024. So the reason I'm all dressed up today is because I had a religious commitment. I had to go to the temple because there was some ceremony, one thing or the other. And I just got ready. And so when I came back home a few minutes ago, I was like, I do have the makeup on. I better put it to good use. So I decided I'll just film this video today. It's February, by the way, and I think it's time that I finally film this January wrap-up video. So let's go on to the statistics because this time, this year basically, I do want to have a statistics page on my reading records page as well, and this is how it looks. I'll be sure to include a link, not link, but like a clip of how my journal looks right now so you can check it out. But yeah, so I read a total of 10 books in the month of December, which I thought was a really good thing that I did. Then I read, from these 10 books, I read a total page count of 1882. Then in terms of format, I read 6 physical books and 4 ebooks. Out of these, 10 books, 5 were pure romance, erotica and such. 4 were literary fiction books, 2 were short story collections, and 1 was a mystery book. And yeah, that's my basic stats. I've always wanted to do a stats page. I've seen so many people do them, and they're always so complex, and that is why it kind of deterred me also. But I realized that I can put my own twist to this statistics page. I can put all the numbers that I personally am interested in, and so that's why I just put in the record that I shared with you. And I also have this favorite reads of the month section. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started with the books. Alright, so I don't have a few of these books with me because right now I'm in Assam. So I'll obviously put a picture of the books somewhere on the side. But the first book, before I start telling you about what I thought about the books, let me tell you that in January I participated in the January in Japan readathon. So basically what happened was that in that readathon there were a total of 8 different prompts and we had to pick up minimum of 2. I picked up 3 books, but because of the 3 books I could cover a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prompts. So that was really great. So firstly, let's talk about the book that I picked up, which was also the first read of January. And this was Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. Now this was my first Murakami proper novel. I have previously read a short story by him. I think it was Birthday Girl. So I think firstly this is a translated book obviously, and I think it read beautifully. So I can definitely say that I personally think that the translation was done really well. So much so that the visual imagery was really pushed through the page. I could actually imagine the different places that the people were living in, whether it's the hectic, busy city life or whether it's in the mountains, the peaceful places where the characters go to in some bits of the book. So that's that. Then there is also the epistolary format. The characters are writing letters to each other, and I have written letters, mind you, so it felt very nostalgic to me. That was a very beautiful part. Then, recently I have been loving the slice of life aspect. Whenever it's shown in movies or books or series or whatever, I really enjoy it. And I think this book really made me feel that the slice of life aspect. We have Watanabe, and I feel like, not I feel like, but I think he is the main character of the book. And so his life, the silent moments, the quiet moments as well, when he's studying, when he's out, let's say, partying in the clubs, when he's in his dorm, cleaning up, all of that. I think that slice of life moment, we get to briefly see him in bits when he's alone, when he's with people, the way he interacts with people. It was all very, very great. Now, as for the women, I've previously read in reviews actually that many people have a sort of problem with how Murakami portrays women, and until I read this book, of course, I couldn't completely relate. So I think the the women were really portrayed and fixedly put within the male gaze, I think, and so we either see them as in dichotomies. I think we either see them in the I'm not the other girl side, and either they're the whole manic pixie dream girl, or they're um, kind of suicidal, I think. So Naoko and Midori, I think both were really put in that box. I'm not like sorry, I mean the Manic Pixie Dream Girl box, and it kind of felt very limiting for the women. And then there's this other woman who is the girlfriend of Watanabe's kind of friend or senior, I think. And she's seen as a very kind of passive woman. She just accepts her boyfriend cheating on her and everything. She knows, and yet she doesn't do anything. So women felt very passive to me in this book. And then lastly, we have, I think her name was Reiko. For the longest time, I thought that maybe Reiko was more realistic than the others, but then the story takes such a weird turn towards the end that I thought that bit was really, really unnecessary. And I feel like it doesn't have to be that every relationship between a man and a woman has to be sexual. Why bring in sex unnecessarily? So I think that bit was a bit unnecessary, but overall, as the first Murakami I picked up, I really enjoyed it. The vibes were immaculate. It was really giving, and I do think I'm going to pick up a Murakami again. That said, I think I might pick up a short story versus a novel. So that's that. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I would recommend it to you all. It read quickly, pretty well, and I read it from the 4th of Jan to 7th of Jan. So it read beautifully, and the pacing was good and everything. And I have to say that I really love the Murakami covers because they're all very simple, and yet there is this uniformity in all of them, and I love that aesthetic. The shade of red is also very, very good. So yeah. So that's my thought on Murakami, and now let's move on to the next book. Moving on, I picked up Days at the Morisak Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa, which was also another book for the January in Japan readathon that I did. Now, this was a very, very beautiful book. So, after reading Murakami, I was, especially Norwegian Wood, I was in the mood for something similar, something with slow vibes, the slice of life aspect that I just mentioned previously. I really wanted something along those lines, and I thought that Days at the Murasaki Bookshop would really fulfill me. And I've also seen a lot of it on social media recently because everybody seems to love it. So I was like, I'll pick this up, and I already had the book. Um, since I read it, in that cusp, basically end of a new year, end of a year, beginning of a new year, I was doing a lot of introspection on my own and thinking about what I wanted for the new year, where I wanted to go, as in my journey in life, not traveling. So all of that, and I perhaps that is the reason why I related so much to Takako, our female main character in this book, and her period of recuperation in this bookshop. So basically, Takako is a woman who's like lost her job. Her boyfriend has married someone else, or is about to marry someone else. He drops a bomb on her, and it's like nothing is going her way. And so she decides, and she can no longer afford to stay in her apartment. So she decides, and I think her mom also tells her uncle to maybe have her help him at his bookshop in exchange for bed and lodging. So without any other backup option left, she goes there and everything. And basically, we follow her throughout her period of recuperation. She also reads a lot of books, slowly discovers the different books there are, and she slowly discovers that she loves reading and all of that, gets back in touch with reading and all of that. And I love books set in bookstores and libraries with that bookish setting, basically. And I think it was really, really done very, very well. So I think this was a very fulfilling read, and it really touched me, I think. And the fact that it's also very short did help, um, because I was kind of recovering from a reading slump from the previous year. So everything. So I think this was a really good book. I would definitely recommend it to you all. Moving on, the last book that I read for the January in Japan readathon is one that I have here, and it is Before We Say Goodbye, which is book 4 in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. Now, basically, this It's a collection of like I think 4 or 5 stories, and all of the books are like that. Each has a collection of 4 or 5 stories. But overall, all of these different stories follow different characters who all visit one particular bookshop, not bookshop, sorry, cafe in Tokyo, and there's another branch also, which lets you go back into the past and talk to people basically your family members, lovers, whatever it is. But of course, there are terms and conditions. So in this one as well, we follow that same premise. Let me tell you about my favorite story from here, though. It is one called The Daughter. So basically, it's about a daughter who regrets not sharing more time with her father before he dies, basically. So I am a daughter. I am definitely a daddy's girl, and this book really made me see um, how parents also feel when we are not kind to them. I mean, I always tried my best to be a good daughter to my dad, to my parents in general, but I feel like every one of us, sometimes we snap and everything, and I felt so bad when I was reading this book because I've had my fair share of being rebellious, being unkind to my parents, being judgmental, all of those, but still they have lavished me with a lot of love and understanding. So this story really made me emotional and I cried and everything. It was really nice. And it's like it made me realize that our parents are also doing this for the first time, raising kids, growing old, and at this point, all they want is for the kids to be happy. And so, if they want even a few minutes from us every day or whatever, I think we shouldn't feel put out or irritated because of these expectations. I think we can do it. So basically, this book made me realize my own flaws, where I can do better, and it was an important lesson for me. So overall, this was a very good book, as are all the other books in this series. Would definitely recommend them if you haven't read this series. It's such again, this is also a slice of life kind of book. So all of these are books that I really, really personally love, and I would definitely recommend them all to you. Moving on, let me tell you about the next book that I read, which is Love on the Second Tre by Nayanika. Now, this book basically follows two characters, Emma and Kip, and they are both editors in a publishing house. Emma edits romances, and Kip edits fantasy and all of that. So, as an editor myself, I found it really, really relatable. Dealing with deadlines, dealing with moody authors, dealing with your seniors, and dealing with different departments, everything. I felt like it was very, very relatable. Moreover, Emma's character, I think the author really molded her very well. We got to see one facet of her as time moved on in the story, which I really, really enjoyed. Now, I did find a few similarities between this and Emily Henry's books, but the saving grace is that this book is very self-aware of it, so it was really fun. Moreover, I think Emma and Kip, since they both work in the fiction department, in the fiction world, basically editing fictional books, they are all aware of these tropes, and they also recognize them. And as a reader, I recognize the tropes with them. It was really, really fun. Let me tell you. This book also refers to some really famous romances like the Spanish Love Deception and so on. So I think it was really, really fun. Now, Emma has this friend called Janie, and I love their banter. And I mean, it really reminded me of the way I and my friends talk. So that was very, very relatable. And apart from that whole, aspect of friendship, there is a moral basis to their friendship as well. So when Janie does something which Emma doesn't think is particularly good or ethical, she calls her out for it as well, which also was done very, very well. Then talking about Kip, Kip is a gentleman. He is a green flag, let me tell you, and he the way he banters with Emma also is very, very funny. And yeah, overall, I had a good time reading this book. My only criticism in this book was I think that Emma keeps on talking a lot about the breakup and the aftermath. I think I would have loved more of a glimpse of a more delving into how the breakup happened and a bit before the breakup as well. So that might have been nice, giving us a bit of background. But overall, really, really fun book, and it's also quite short. I had a lot of fun reading this, so yeah, I would definitely recommend this to you all, and it was really fun. Yeah. Then moving on, I want to talk about Romance Stories, which is a collection of stories by Jhumpa Lahiri. Now, this is a book, beautiful hardcover book, which my father gifted to me in the airport. We were coming back home from Delhi to Assam. I had just gotten released from the hospital on the 25th, and then on the 27th, we were in the airport, and I was like, I saw this book, and I was like, Daddy, will you buy me this book? And he was like, yes, sure. Maybe he saw me sick and all. He thought that maybe buying me a book would uplift me, which it did. Yes, it did. But overall, this was a really, really nice book. This is also really reminiscent of the slice of life aspect because they follow different stories and their lives as they live life in Rome basically. So that was really nice, and it's very slow paced and beautiful. But I did think that the author veered more towards show rather than telling. So that was a little icky bit. But overall, it was really interesting. The stories were really nice. The themes mostly dealt with the outsider insider debate. However, I do think that it kind of verged more towards the negative aspect or the negative experiences that people face because of other people's racial prejudices and cultural prejudice in general. So it, even though talked more about the insider outsider aspect, it really showed some of the difficulties that the outsiders face, which again is sad to read about, but also really, I think, of course, true. So that was really well portrayed. But yeah, overall, I had a good time reading this book. It was slow paced and really, really nice. This one was translated from the Italian by the author Victor Portnowitz. So let me tell you how many stories there are. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are total 9 stories, and I think I read it pretty soon. Let me see. I read it over 3 4 days. I finished this book on the 31st of January, so that's that. Overall, I had a really good time reading this book. Moving on to the last physical book of the month, January, we have The Velvet Hotline by Arsh Verma. So in this book, basically, we follow this teacher called IMV, and she is a primary school teacher. But you know, the vacations are coming, and she needs some money, so she decides to join a suicide helpline center. So the first center she joins is kind of very shady, and then the second, um, at the second center, which she joins later, the boss starts acting funny. So overall, I think this was a really interesting book. Firstly, the whole suicide helpline center element. The author has picked up a very sensitive issue, and without sensationalizing it or without tokenizing it or anything, he has woven a good fiction story around it. As for Andy, the character, her character is also very good, well-rounded, and we see one layer of the other after the another, like the peeling of an onion in regards to her character as the story moves on. She lives in Delhi. I think this is set in Delhi, and so the casual racism that she faces and her mental disturbance over it is also well portrayed. I think the author has discussed or shown this whole aspect without tokenizing her identity and her ethnic identity, her culture, and all of that. So that was great. Her goodness also really shone through. That said, the mystery of all these, I don't want to give any spoilers, but anyway, the mystery is also really well put together. I am not that big of a mystery reader, so I could not really figure out what was going on, which actually kept me hooked on until the very end. So the mystery element was done really, really well. And I think Arsh Verma is a police officer because there's this comment blurb by Ruskin Bond which says, police officers get to see more of human nature in its many aspects than most people. Arsh Verma uses his experience and writing skills to give us an outstanding crime thriller. That's that. However, I had an issue with the ending because I felt the ending was very abrupt and the supernatural element came out very suddenly. I would have appreciated more of a, if the author left some crumbs for us in the beginning so that it wouldn't, we kind of expected that turn, but otherwise that was really, really unexpected. I have kind of mixed feelings about that. Some of you might love it, some of you might hate it, but whatever it is, overall the book I have to say was really well done. I read it on a train ride from Delhi to Katgodam when we went to Uttarakhand this January. So I read it within a few hours and it reads very fast. The pacing is really well maintained throughout and I had a good time with it. The overall tone of this book is kind of dry humor, so it's fun also reading this book, and it really keeps you hooked until the very end. So, yeah, really enjoyed this book. Let us move on to the four adult romance novellas that I read. These are more so erotica, let me tell you. So, first, let me share about the one-star reads and then I'll go to the two-star read. So, I read A Very Grumpy Best Friend by Shawhart. In this book, we basically follow Foster and Liliana. They have been best friends since childhood, and then Liliana has moved away. But now she's coming back, and Foster is like, this time I have to finally tell her what I feel, and then so that we can be together and all of that. But it turns out Liliana has harbored the very same feelings for Foster as well. So basically, yeah, it's two best friends getting together and romance. Now, I have to say, I wrote a very short one line review. So, the basic gist of that review was that it's a novella, so it's very short. However, if the story would have been a little bit extended, then we would have perhaps had a chance to enjoy it more. That would have given us more of a look into how the romance, immersion, everything. It could have been done well had it been longer, but otherwise I did not enjoy it, and it just felt very rushed and insta. I mean, it's not insta because it's mentioned that they have always had feelings for each other, but still, overall, I didn't personally enjoy it a lot, so I gave it a one star. Then we have Stranded by Riley Kane and Mina Thorne. So basically, we have two people. We've got Julia and Ivan. So basically, Ivan is the airplane pilot, and then she is going on that airplane. But what happens is that they crash on a remote island, and then they are stranded together. They kind of hate each other from the very beginning. He calls her princess because he thinks she's kind of spoiled or entitled or anything or something like that. But then it slowly when they are on the island they start working together. I mean, they have to work together since they're stranded, and then there's this attraction between these two and all of that. So ultimately they get together. It's a love story after all, and my review for it is the exact same that I wrote for the previous book. I just gave you the gist of that review previously, but let me tell you what I actually wrote. I wrote, very quick novella, and as such, things happen at a pretty accelerated rate. Could have been done better if there was more to it. So that's it. One star. Then I read the most unhinged book of all time, and the name of that book is Unhinged by Vera Valentine. Now I don't know how to explain the synopsis of this book, but basically we follow this girl called Tara who's recently moved to a new place. Her landlord is this really creepy guy, but then who is her guardian angel? It's her front door. And then after a series of events, he comes alive, and then they get together, and then he goes back to being a door, but she does something, and then he becomes the door becomes the man again. It's very, very unhinged. No wonder the name's unhinged. Also, I think a pun on the hinges of a door, whatever. But I'm not going to waste a lot of time or any time talking more about this book. I'll just share the two-line review that I wrote. This is a one-star book for me, by the way. I knew what I was getting into because I have heard so much about this book. Everybody is shitting on this book. But no, come on. I think we were fine until alien romances. Doors now? Hell no. So, yeah. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about today, the last book from my whole January wrap up, is called Alien Protector's Mate by Melissa Emerald. So basically, we have this girl called Serena. She's from Earth. She gets kidnapped by these aliens, and then along with a few other girls, and then their spaceship crashes on an alien planet where she is ultimately rescued by this guy, and he belongs to a society of other males like him. There are no women in the society, so it's kind of weird the things that they do and the things she has to teach him. but it's basically a human female and alien male romance. So um, let me share the synopsis I wrote, because I mean, with these romances, I don't think I can share that big of a review with you all like I did for the other books. So this was, I rated this book 2 stars. This was comparatively much better than the 3 other books that I just told you about from Princess. This is also a romance, by the way, more or less. Surprisingly, this was pretty well written compared to the trash I was expecting. Some bits did make me raise my eyebrows, but what can you expect from an alien society of males who have never seen females? And all are virgins, obviously. Lol. Pretty decent read with a fair amount of world building. So that's my review for this book. But yeah, those are all the 10 books I read in the month of January. I hope you had a good time watching this video. And even though I would recommend you to read all the first 6 books that I shared or talked about today, I would definitely recommend you not to waste your time with the last 4 adult romance novella eroticas that I talked about. Those are not worth your time. But yeah, overall, I hope you had a fun time watching this video. I'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, take care. Peace out. Bye.